Here goes. Well, Ethel First is here, everybody. Ethel First is actually in a ray of sunshine. She's in Florida. It looks like you're in Florida. The sun looks just
Is the
beautiful.
sun too much sun behind me? Do you want me to? Can
No,
you see? Okay.
no, it looks absolutely beautiful. So, Ethel First is my Makatana step, whatever that is. My daughter Katie is married to Ethel's son Jake.
That's the
And
truth.
so Ethel and Gary are Katie's in-laws. And I am happy to say my friends. A lot of years, Ethel.
A lot of years. A lot of years, Betty. A lot of
So,
years and two shared grandchildren later.
and two shared grandchildren, and Ethel has six.
I do.
That seemed to have happened really fast.
It's a brood, and I never anticipated it. I never dreamed it. I had two children. They married two more children, but it never occurred to me that we would wind up with a family of 12 when we make a dinner reservation.
Is that right?
Hmm.
Gosh. Well, I mean, I remember when Asher was born. I mean, I remember Asher's first birthday
Yep,
party.
exactly.
It just doesn't seem.
Yep.
On that light note, so let's just say their names because they're going to want to listen to this about you. So,
Okay.
who are your
So, who are
grandchildren?
my grandchildren? My firstborn and only grandson is Asher Davis Alani. His middle name is for Gary's grandfather, Eddie Davis, who was one of the family's heroes and characters. And he will turn 13 in June of this year. So we anticipate his bar mitzvah, we hope, that,
Oh,
that we'll be able to celebrate in some way. And it looks like more and more possible. Then comes next in line his sister Delilah, who's 9.5 now. She was born the week my mother died. She
oh
was
my.
actually born within 4 days of my mother's death. And I was down in New York getting ready to help with, welcome her. My mother went into the hospital. I raced back to
Where was your
Boston.
mother?
She was in Boston.
In Boston, and you were in New York.
Yep. I raced back to Boston, sat with my mother while she died. Missed. No, Delilah was born. I left. My mother died. We. It was Christmas week. We couldn't bury her for several days because the grave diggers were not available because of Christmas. And I waited and then raced back to New York to help Leah and Eric and Asher and Delilah get themselves settled. It was a time of great uncertainty for me. I didn't know whether to go to the dead or the living, but that's another story.
Right.
Then came Eve, our shared granddaughter Eve, who is now 8.5 and will be 9. And the nice part of that is that she and Delilah are 8 months apart and have a wonderful friendship, aside from being funny cousins. And then came our twin girls, Noah and Liv, who were an unexpected bonus, and they are 6.5. And then they are 8 months apart from Sydney, our littlest, and you and Gary and my shared second grandchild, the adorable Sydney Ray, who is the last in the bunch at 5 3/4, as she told me yesterday. 5 3/4.
Quarters.
Yes. So those are my grandchildren.
So those are the grandchildren. And you were a teacher. You
Yep.
were a principal
Yep.
more than more
Yeah.
than
I started out as a teacher for about 5 years. I taught first grade, taught a lot of kids to read, and then took some time with my kids, did some teaching at the college level for a little while, part time, and then did my degree to become certified to lead schools. And I finished that up in 86. And then in 87, took my first principalship. And for the next 20 years, led 3 different schools over 3 periods of time. And it was the greatest privilege of my life. It was the most meaningful, challenging, thought provoking, intellectually and emotionally um, fulfilling thing that I've done, other than my parenting and, you know, that part of my world, but I mean, in
Right.
terms of the professional side of me. And I retired early because I wanted to retire when people were sorry to see me go, not when they were
Right.
anxious to see me go. And I did it the year after Leah and Eric were married, at the end of August in 2005, because I was so heartbroken after they were married at the end of August at our home on Cape Cod that I couldn't stay there and kind of revel in the pleasure of the celebration we had just had. I had to run back up to Boston to open school, and at that point on my way back up, I thought, maybe I'm done here. Maybe this is enough. So that year, I um, offered my retirement in the springtime, and um, that was the end of a chapter. And it's funny because in these times, and every September since then, so for 15 years now, every September I've been nostalgic, and
Oh,
I see school buses go by and I think, oh gosh, I'd love to be in the thick of it right now, except for September 2020, when I didn't feel that
right.
way at all, because this was the toughest year for teachers and educators that I think has ever happened. And I think they have had a tremendous amount put on them, and a lack of respect and appreciation and remuneration and understanding of what they've been going through. And as much as I would have liked to help them all, and I'm still in touch with a bunch of them, and I talk to them about this on the side, um, I can't imagine leading a school in this situation. I can't imagine doing it and how you do it and how you could even possibly juggle all the pieces.
Ethel, how do you, given that, which is just shocking to even think of, I mean, all of this is shocking to think
Yeah.
about. But how do you think education has changed? Because you've been gone
Um,
since 2005, which is a long time ago,
2006, yes.
16 years ago or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that some things haven't changed is the change. It's sort of a meta thing. So the fact that teachers are still paid poorly,
Yeah.
um, but asked to do so much more. So the schoolhouse has really become the social service agency of the community. So, you know, kids are seeing, there are nurses in school, there are police officers in schools, there are social workers in schools, all of whom don't have enough time to do the kinds of things the kids and their families need from them. And and the school day is the same as when Horace Mann set
Oh,
it up in whatever that was. You know, it was a response to farming for the most part. So we were an agrarian society. Kids went to school from 8 to 2 and went home and helped pick potatoes in Maine
right.
and, you know, corn in Kansas and all the rest of it. And the model really hasn't changed. So when you ask me how has it changed, the demands are greater, the supports are fewer, and the model is stagnant.
How are
The
the demands
structural
greater?
model.
How are the demands greater?
Demands are greater because society is expecting schools to cure all ills, and because the accountability upon teachers and the 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 change in demographic and um, the broader cultural norms that people have to understand and accommodate to and for and teach to, the accountability from the government for all kinds of testing and other kinds of things have just put a really undue burden on the schoolhouse and the classroom.
And they're not really paid. I mean,
Not
that's
paid, not paid, certainly not paid, and in many places not vaccinated now. Still not not on the top of the list of vaccinations in Massachusetts, for instance. They
really,
haven't been vaccinated yet, but they expected to open schools. Yeah.
I don't know what to
So,
say.
and but I'll tell you, you know, when you go to a school or you meet a teacher, you meet the finest people. You have your niece Casey, and is an amazing. Aren't I right? Isn't it Casey?
Mhm.
Yes. Who's an incredible teacher, and there are so many like her, every one of them, and they get up and they do it every day, even though it's hard, and even though one day they're remote, and one day they're in the classroom, and one day, and then they're making plexiglass, and then I mean, they're putting one foot in front of the other and trying their best to make it meaningful for the kids in this country. They're the best people in the world.
Oh, that's such
I
a nice
love them.
thing to say. The truth is, I mean, am I wrong? But when I was growing up, I don't think teachers were allowed to be married.
Oh
It was
yeah,
Miss this,
and they
Miss
weren't
that,
allowed
Miss
to get pregnant.
Maloney.
Yeah, and you would, if you got pregnant, if you were married, I think you could be married, but you certainly couldn't be pregnant in the schoolhouse. And when I applied for my first job in 1973, I interviewed at a private school among many places, and I interviewed with a very stodgy, outside of Boston, a stodgy old tweed jacket, bow tie guy, with a neat hairdo. And he said, well, we have some openings. We have an opening in the sixth grade, but of course we don't have women. No, we don't let the girls. And he didn't use the word women. I don't know, something. We don't have females teaching the older children. There will be an opening in second grade, and you might be able to do that. And obviously, ultimately, he didn't offer me that job, and I didn't want it. But that was the way it was. And my mother even said to me when I started teaching first grade, she said, "Oh, wouldn't you get paid more if you taught 12th grade or 10th grade or something?" And I said, "No, Mom, it's all this, it's all the same." Meanwhile, I was teaching kids to read and write and leave their homes and, socialize themselves and all this. So, all that has changed for sure. But yeah, I mean, teaching, many women were told they could be a teacher, a nurse, or a secretary, right?
A teacher, a nurse, or a secretary. That was all. That was it.
That was a lot of it. That was pretty much it. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, bust out of that, but she broke the mold. But most people of our generation and older were told they could be a teacher, nurse, secretary, or most importantly, a homemaker,
A homemaker. So that's all really changed.
otherwise known as a housewife.
Yeah, a housewife.
A housewife.
So let's just talk a little bit about the change. Um, because women are mad and they're not going to take it anymore. Remember
For sure.
network?
I do remember.
Well, they're mad and they're not going to take it anymore. And it is what it is. I mean,
Yep.
my daughter, Katie, is one of those people who
Yep.
there's no way that she's going to be relegated to something other than what she wants.
Yep.
I didn't know people that had that option. Even though I became a model and I've
Yes.
traveled all over the world.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And that was pretty
something.
exciting.
Yeah, that was something at the time, for sure.
Yeah, I went to
I mean,
NYU and I did whatever. And then I thought, I don't want to do this. I want to and I got a job as a model and bang, boom.
Yep. It took
That
you
kind
to
of
great
broke
places. Yes.
that,
That broke the
yeah,
barrier for sure.
that kind of broke the mold. But what I see now is a huge difference in the attitude of
Big
women.
time. Big time. And people toward women, at least most people. I mean, when I went to work full time, it was 1987. Jake was 5. He started kindergarten when I took my first principalship. Leah was in the 4th grade, and I was working very full time. And the first school that I led was quite far from my house. It was a 45-minute commute each way. So I was spending a lot of time, in addition to the big job that I was doing, a lot of time in the car. And Gary and I had and he was traveling a lot. So we knew we had a challenge in front of us.
Yeah.
And we agreed that in order for us to both do what we wanted to do and what we were supposed to do, we had to have good help at home and give away some of the jobs we could give away and So we did that, and we were fortunate to be able to do that because it made us better able to be present and focused for the kids when we did get home. And I think I take pride in thinking that even though I was working a big job and full time, and he was working a demanding job and traveling, that we still did right, by our family, which was always our very, very, very first priority.
I remember my mother did not work,
Yes,
and
mine either.
she was so frustrated.
Mine too.
She decided she was going to be a hat designer, and I don't know
Oh,
what she said. All the hats were too small for
oh.
everybody, but she made hats, and then she was going to be a dress designer. And I mean, she was really, really kind of sucker punched with, you're going to stay home.
My mother was too, absolutely. And she did toward the end of her life, did some writing and got published a couple of times in local newspapers and stuff, mostly about food. But she was a capable person who was supremely frustrated, and it took a toll on her for sure.
I think that it took a toll on a lot of them,
Yeah, yeah,
um, and a lot of women were happy with that. I think women that I went to high school with kind of wanted to marry a guy with a lot of money and live in a
yeah,
house in a certain
yeah,
neighborhood, a certain
yeah.
street.
But the
Kids,
big difference now is that people have choices. So if you choose to
right?
stay home and you choose that to, make that choice for your family, more power to you. And if you choose to, do something out in the work world, more power to you. But at least there's a choice. And I think back when our mothers were living their lives, there was no choice. And then for us, the choices started to become more available, and we paved the way for the choices to come available. I think one of the things about being this age in this time is that we've lived through, I think, the most remarkable 50, 60, 70-year stretch of history in terms of change. And I'd like to think change mostly for the better. The women's movement, the anti-Vietnam War movement, the changes in social justice and civil rights and racial equity, the expanding, the expanding feelings about the gay, lesbian, trans, all that whole community. I mean, so much, and the political stuff, and all of it has been monumentally. Never mind all of technology that came and all of that stuff. We've lived through an amazing period of time.
Yeah, we had a phone with a party line because there were only so many lines.
Yes,
What
yes,
I do want to say that we have made these astonishing changes. I mean, the fact that we're doing Zoom and,
yes.
I'm
Here
a
we are.
woman of a
Yeah,
certain, we're women of a certain age,
certain age. Yeah,
like crazy. And like I can walk my dog and wear an earpiece and talk to Katie, my
yeah,
daughter, or whatever. But I think some of the things which the changes are is I don't know that there's been a change, but I know that a lot of things have, for want of a better word, come out of the closet.
yes,
And I mean, Black Lives Matter
yeah,
is whether,
totally. Oh, it's not
70%
fixed.
or 60% of the population likes it or doesn't like it. It's out and it's not going
Yeah,
back in the closet.
that's right.
And
It's
when
certainly
I
not
think in,
fixed, but at least it's not, uh, you know,
in the
un,
closet,
yeah, unspoken or unacknowledged.
unspoken, and I was looking at some like fashion magazines, and the New York Times magazine section
Yeah,
last week was on
yeah,
fashion,
I
and
saw that.
just the concept that it's, I mean, I was a model. We were all white people. There was
I know.
one woman, Pal Henry. She was, in all the years, she was the only Black model. I mean, that's just ridiculous
Yeah, it's
until
ridiculous.
until like I got older, and then Halston hired just everybody and the most wonderful looking women. But we've watched this come out of the closet.
Yep.
And I think the thing about it is it's so danger. It's so, I don't want to say dangerous. It's aggressive. It's frightening. There are people who are just adamant about this not happening, but it
Totally.
seems like that
The
is
wave,
out
it's a
of the barn.
tsunami, and that horse has left the barn for sure.
Yeah.
It's a tsunami. And we haven't gotten it straightened out and we haven't gotten it figured out, and there's still a lot wrong with it all. But the more and more it can get talked about and acknowledged and seen and heard, the better the chance that something good will come of it.
I mean, you can't say we didn't know. I mean, it
Uh-uh.
can't be like, well, I didn't know. No, we
Not
all
anymore.
know.
Yeah, not anymore.
My family is related to Robert E. Lee. My mother's mother was Annie Lee.
Wow.
And a lot of my life, I would say, we're related to Robert E. Lee. I mean, hey, a lot of Jewish people can't say that.
No.
And I started reading and
Yeah.
understanding, and where Arlington Cemetery, that was his property.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't know. I mean,
No, we didn't know a lot of things.
and
We
nobody
didn't know a
told
lot of
us.
things.
So I guess hate never goes out of style. I just wish, I don't know. I watch it and I see it and I just wonder, what do we do? What do you think we do to detonate that kind of anger and resentment? And it just, that would be a real, that would be a real coup if we could do
It
that.
would. I don't know the answer for sure at all,
I know we
but
don't.
I live by the principle of just doing my part to
Right.
contribute to kindness and justice and goodness and care, and setting an example for my grandchildren, your grandchildren, our grandchildren, the people that I'm with. And I feel like somehow as I get older, I feel like even the tiniest drop in the sea makes a difference. So
That's
I,
100%
I
right.
don't believe that we have to alter big things to make a difference. I feel that every small thing we do contributes to the good of the whole. And I also think that the haters are a lot louder than the lovers, and I don't think there are as many of them as they want us to believe. And I think my travels and my encounters with people at all places and all ways, I just keep meeting the nicest, kindest people. And
Yeah,
I
you
think
do.
people are universally good, except for those few who aren't. And as far as I'm concerned, they can just sit they can just do their thing, and I'm going to continue to do the next right thing for me.
I think it
And
calls upon us now to stand up and be counted. What is
yeah,
that quote that
definitely.
hating is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die?
That's a good one.
That's a
Yeah.
good one. So
I don't want anything to do with it, and I won't even honor it. I love that they're calling Trump the former guy.
yeah.
Nobody's saying his name anymore. The former guy is, this
Oh,
and
that
that.
I never heard.
Oh, did you hear it? I don't know.
No.
I'm hearing it all over the place now. The former guy. They don't even call him by his name, which he
Well,
doesn't deserve.
I mean, I shouldn't do this, but there is a gold statue of him.
I did see that.
A solid gold, or what? I can't be solid
They
gold.
were rolling it by. Yeah.
They were rolling it with the Bermudas, and so we're going to let them. We're going to give them their own thing.
Yeah.
And having talked about this, but one thing, I'm going to go back to it for a second. One thing is that a lot of people are online. I was reading in the New York Times, a lot of people are online meditating. A lot of people are online taking mindfulness courses with other people and alone. And that's a good thing.
Sure it is.
That's a really good thing.
Especially at this time. This has been a hard year for people. And any way that people can find some sense of peace or a moment of quiet or a chance to escape from the demands of being, at home with other family members and working and trying to figure out how to get food and maybe how to pay the rent and all the other things. Anything anybody can do to give themselves a kind of a break or a window into a quieter place, I think is wonderful.
I do Reiki. I'm a Reiki master, and I do Reiki, virtual Reiki, and
Oh,
it's very, 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 very nice. It's as nice for me, really, is that it's very quiet. Nobody has to get up, give me their credit card, and get on the subway. It's they're in their
yes.
bed, they're on a yoga mat, they can lie on their couch, whatever it is. It's funny. I did one recently, and it was Zoom, but I wasn't looking at her. I was kind of, my eyes were shut, and I opened my eyes, and both of her cats were lying on top of her.
I miss.
And she
It's
was trying to,
like goat yoga. Did you see the
like
goat
goat
yoga?
yoga, exactly, like goat yoga. And she was, she was just sitting there. She never moved or anything. But I thought, well, there you go. That's kind of interesting. Also, are you taking classes online? Any virtual
Yeah,
classes? What are you
yes.
taking?
I've been taking stuff at the 92nd Street Y. So I took a Shakespeare one. I took King Lear, and then I took one I really enjoyed about with a professor from Vanderbilt about Michelangelo paintings, and I'm just signed up for one about Da Vinci. So I was an art history major. I never really intended to become a teacher, and I love art and form and shape and design, and I'm a very visual person. So all of that stuff is great, and the Zoom format lends itself to that kind of thing because he's putting up all these beautiful
Yeah.
slides of things. And then the other one that I've taken is with David Allen Sibley. Do you know who that is? He's an ornithologist, and he has these beautiful books about birds.
Oh,
And he is both the, if you haven't seen them, you really should. I should send you one. I will.
yeah.
David Allen Sibley. And he's a magnificent illustrator of birds, and he's also a bird expert. And he has this beautiful book, new book out. I forget the name. Uh, Sort of like everything about birds, but that's not the right title. And he was focused on that book. So we took a 3-part session with him in the fall, and we're doing another one this spring. Gary's doing that with me because he loves birds. And so there's that. I've done that.
Nice.
Um, yeah,
I got close to, I take a yoga class every day, and one of the women and I, we go in early and we talk to get
oh,
to know,
that's so
we
nice.
like each other. And then I take two of the Art Students League, and I've become friends with these people.
Yeah, yeah,
I've never met them, but there's an intimacy.
I know there is. There's something about this whole thing. So, one of the things since I got my first vaccine and I'm anticipating my second that I've been thinking a lot about is reentry into the world
Yeah.
and how we're going to do that and how we're going to make the decisions about how we do that and what's going to inform those decisions and how head focused are they going to be, how heart focused are they going to be, how information focused are they going to be. And I was on my call with my book club earlier this week, 7 women, all in various stages of vaccination. So all, 70-ish and, had one, getting a second, all that. And so the conversation, we usually have a conversation, bless you. We usually have a like chat them up at the beginning before we talk about the book. And the beginning conversation this week was about what are you going to do? Are you going to see your grandchildren? Are you going to see them inside? Are you going to wear a mask? Are you not going to wear a mask? Are you going to go to a restaurant? Are you going to meet up with friends? Are you not going to do? And the spectrum among these 7, well-educated, knowledgeable women was amazing. And the PTSD was loud and clear from, in every one of us in some way or another. And, I think you talk about the intimacy of Zoom, which I agree, and has provided us with a lot of, I think, amazing opportunities. There's been a lot of benefit from it. Look at you and me right now. This is a
Yeah.
benefit. Um, but stepping back into that world we used to know and helping to write it in some way so that it is workable for everybody is going to be a true challenge.
You know, it's such an important point you're bringing up. I have a friend, um, and we're really very, very close. We know each other. We're there. She can tell me the worst thoughts, and I tell her,
Yeah,
and
of course.
the most vulnerable. And
Hmm.
she said to me yesterday, I kind of don't want to, she said, I'm socially phobic and I'm very uncomfortable with people. And I'm very happy being home. I'm reading, I'm taking naps. Her husband does the laundry, everything, so she doesn't have to. She said, I'm not looking forward to.
Yeah.
And another one of my virtual Reiki clients who is so wonderful, she said, I'm really not, she said the same thing. And she's a very different person. She's a television producer, so she's out and about. But I wonder, like you said, PTSD, I wonder how many people are going to kind of slowly come out of their houses.
I think a lot, very slowly. And I think one of the things we may have learned through all this is how to be alone, how to be home, how to give ourselves permission to do little or do nothing or take a nap or, make choices that are quieter and less social. I mean, that may not be for everybody, but it may have given permission to the people for whom it's important or more comfortable to actually be able to do it.
Yeah. And then there's
going
people
forward.
who have no work, who are
Exactly.
living with relatives and
Exactly. It's horrendous.
Oh my gosh, that's just, when you think about it, there was a very, very old, it's funny, here in Rhinebeck, there's a liquor store across from the high school. I don't know how that happened. Surely the liquor store was here first.
Right, first.
And it's been here forever and ever. And I walked that way with the dog, and I walked by it, and it was all closed up.
Oh, sorry. Mm.
And I thought, what
Permanently.
a shame.
Permanently.
I think so. Yeah. And it just said closed. It just, a little. And, we haven't even seen Victoria's Secret closing down. And I don't want to be depressing, but things closing down that we never imagined.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Definitely.
So
there's a lot ahead of us, I think.
A lot ahead of us. So on that light note, and then we have to find it within ourselves.
Yeah.
Or what matters and what's important and where we're going to find our joy and who we.
Yep. All that.
And we can, and we absolutely can.
Yep.
So I am going to ask you a question. I sent you and Katie. Oh, I didn't send it to Leah, I don't think. The interview with Frances McDormand on aging.
Oh, so good.
She was talking to Katie Couric, and I guess I can say this because Katie Couric said, well, I dye my hair and, and about plastic surgery. I'm not going to go there, but Frances McDormand, she is a champion.
She's a hero. She's a champion. I loved what she said about when you do your face, when you alter your face, you remove the evidence. I don't know how she said it, but something like you remove the evidence of your journey. You remove the evidence of your journey.
Right.
And I have a slight obsession with hands and older hands. And I always look at people's hands when I meet them and when I'm with them. But the ones that fascinate me the most are the hands of older people. And when she said that thing about when you remove, people don't get their hands done, but they get their face done. So sometimes you can see, these people who look like they've taken 20 years off their lives.
Shock and awe.
Right, shock and awe. But you look at their hands and you see they've still lived a life, right?
Right.
And I hope the time doesn't come when people get their hands done. But I don't know where I was going with that, but I like looking at
The journey, the journey you were
the
talking.
evidence of age on people's hands as evidence of wisdom and time spent and people met, and all the things that happen that show up on your in your hands when you get older.
My mother had, and I have really terrible hands, and terrible. It's
I've never
okay.
noticed that, Betty. I've
Yeah,
looked
they
at your
do. I
hands many
do.
times.
I mean, that's a hand.
Oh, yeah. But
Yeah.
that looks beautiful to me because it
Thank you.
has a story in it.
It has a story. And I remember it felt so good to look at my mother's hands or to hold her hand.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's, every time they talk about the people dying alone through this horrible thing,
oh, right.
they've said the thing that is universally said is that there was nobody there to hold their hand, or maybe a nurse was kind enough to hold their hand, or a hospital attendant of some kind, but that they died alone without anyone holding their hand. So, what is it about a hand that is that profound human connection evidence? Think of it. You held your babies, you held your mother's hand, you held hands with people who you've loved, you've walked with people and held their hand, you've given people your hand for one reason or another.
I'm going to look this up while we're doing this because why not? There's a bluegrass song called Grandma's Hands.
Oh, I'd love to know that.
Yeah, I'm going to look it up. And Grandma's hands, maybe it's Grandpa's hands, but, and it was, and I remember thinking, yeah, Grandma's hands, Bill Withers, Grandma's hands clapped in church on Sunday morning. Grandma's hands played the played the tambourine so well. Grandma's hands used to issue out a warning. She'd say, Billy, don't you run so fast, might fall on a piece of glass. Maybe snakes.
Oh.
They're in the grass, Grandma's hands. Soothe the local unwed mother. Grandma's hands used to ache sometimes and swell. Grandma's hands used to lift her face and tell her, baby, Grandma understands. Oh,
yeah, of course. Oh, how
that you
wonderful.
really love
And
that
that it's Bill
band.
Withers. Isn't that great?
And it's Bill Withers. And
I'll have to listen to it later.
yeah, I'll send it to you. Maddie, don't you whip that boy. What you want to do a spanking for? He didn't drop no apple core, but I don't have grandma anymore. If I get to heaven, I'll look for grandma's hands. Isn't that so nice?
Isn't that something? Yeah.
Yeah. So in the aging process, but then aging is like they say, it's not for sissies, but
No.
it's you have to take that step.
For sure. And I think if you don't embrace it and try to push it away, you will never get the benefit of the effort and the time and the years you've lived. What is the point of all that if in the on the end side of it you don't take from it what you don't get back what you've put in. I mean, I feel like um, now going forward for hopefully the next 30 years is the time when wisdom, experience, love, friendship, engagement all pay off. It's like you're putting money in the bank, putting money in the bank, putting money in the bank. And then at some point you can start, reaping the rewards. And I like getting older. I'm not afraid to say how old I am. I never have been. I don't care if I have no intention of doing my face. I just I like getting older. I don't mind.
I do
I
audition.
don't love feeling creaky when I get out of bed, and I
No, I
don't
don't
love the
love
fact
that. I'll
I
be
don't love
honest.
the fact that my hands are arthritic and my back has stenosis and I'm limited in what I can do. I don't like any of that, but I love the mental and emotional
Right.
part of it.
Just to say as an aside, is that I had stenosis, have stenosis, and nothing anybody could do. It was awful. And I was
Awful.
taking Advil all the time. And I went to doctors and, all the just terrible. And someone said, go see this man when I lived in Nashville. and his name is Luby. And Luby's an acupuncturist. I said, okay, great. And I went to see Luby, and he said, let me just tell you that I'm not going to do acupuncture, but some muscles are overworking and some muscles are almost frozen because your whole thing is out of line.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to give you Reiki. I mean, I couldn't get in and out of the car really comfort. It was horrible. And I carried around like a huge Costco size Advil, ibuprofen. And he gave me Reiki to relieve the stress and the tension, and it worked.
Wow.
And that's why, you know, and then he said, well, here's how to do it to yourself. And I did it to myself. And then he said, do it to friends and family, because it's a gift to be able. And I worked in those years at a woman's prison as a volunteer. And I said, okay, ladies.
Here we go, girls. Yeah.
Here we go. And universally, not every single one, but all of them said, I feel like there's a light on. I feel that I feel my body, you know.
That's wonderful.
And and so then I decided to do it, and that's why I
get trained for yourself.
Yeah, but those things, you know, at a certain age, some things are not going to go away.
Nope, they ain't.
It's not when you go to the doctor and he says, okay, we're going to do this and this. It's going to be okay. But at a certain point,
take the antibiotics and you won't have a sore throat anymore.
This is who we are. So we talked about grandparenting, reading. What are you reading now?
I just finished one that I just loved called Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. It's a fictionalized story of what she thinks William Shakespeare's family life might have been like when his children were young. And Hamnet is another version of Hamlet name, and it was the name of one of his sons, Truly, who was a twin of his sister Judith, who died during the plague in whatever time that was, 15 something. And it was beautifully written. His name is never used in the book. They never say William or Shakespeare or Will or anything. It's all about his wife and children and how he left the countryside and went to London to establish himself as an actor and playwright, and what the consequences were on his family. And I loved every minute of it. I love to read, as you know, and I love books. I think that all started when I was a teacher, and one of my great pleasures was sharing books with the kids that I taught. And then once I became principal, one of my most fun activities was going classroom to classroom reading. And I spent a lot of time with the librarians in each of the schools that I led, and with the reading specialists, learning about what the new stuff was and what was out there in the book world for kids. But I've always been an avid reader, and I like fiction better than nonfiction, although occasionally I'll read nonfiction. But yeah, and I've tried to share that with the family, and certainly with my grandchildren, which has been fun. So I'm a reader. I love lately I've been reading a lot of historical fiction, because somehow in my schooling, I don't know, I didn't pay attention in history class, and I'm not very good at history on Jeopardy. So I realized I have a gap.
Well, that is reason, absolutely.
And so I have to fix it up, because I'm not dead yet, as I say, NDY. So I read historical fiction so that I can learn about the history while I'm enjoying myself reading a fanciful story. One of my favorites recently was Isabel Allende's Longest Pedal to the Sea, about the Spanish Civil War and Chile and all these things that I really knew nothing about, and now I know a little more. So I'm getting better at Jeopardy, but not yet. Poor Alex Trebek, by the way. I miss Alex Trebek.
You miss him?
I do.
You watch that show?
We watch every night.
Is there a new host?
Yeah, they're having a rotating host. They have the guy who was like the super duper champion for a while, And now they have some of they're going to rotate. I think for a year they're going to rotate people. And speaking of Katie Kirk, she's up to be a host. I think they have this whole roster of people that they're going to bring in. Maybe they're going to do a year of like a gap between somebody official and Alex's death. But anyway, yes, we're
He did
Jeopardy
it
fans.
so well. I mean, he did
He
it
did.
so.
Nobody can do it like him.
No, I mean, he was serious.
Yeah,
And it was
fun
a
and
game
more.
show after
Yeah,
all,
for
but
sure.
he probably, I wonder that the popularity will change.
I just read that all of his suits and
I read that.
wardrobe were donated to a men's shelter or some organization. Nice.
So
He
I'm
was a
looking
natty dresser.
forward. I'm looking forward to. I've always volunteered, always, and it's just
Yes.
in some way, shape, or form. And when I came out here to Rhinebeck, I thought, oh well, there's women's prisons, there's shelters, there's a place for young girls, and those opportunities aren't open.
Oh, because of COVID.
Yeah, because of
Yeah.
COVID. And
Right.
I'm going to teach a collage class
Oh, cool.
on Zoom. Yeah. And I love teaching that. I taught that at Katie's school as well.
For whom? Who are the students going to be?
Well, there's two groups. One group is, there's a group of boys here, and it's the Astor environment. I don't know if it's school or foundation, but
Okay.
there's a lot of young boys that live there. And
so nice.
Their hope would be to go to a foster home. So these kids need a lot of love and a lot of attention. So I put together a class, and they're interested in doing that. Yeah. And then the other is there's another group of teenage girls.
That's wonderful.
I'm saying teenage 11 to 16.
Yeah.
And they're lovely. And we gave them, I mean, I sent the word out, and a lot of people sent them clothes and blah, blah, blah. And so teaching them, collage as well. So, I mean, I can easily drop off what they need, and then, hey, here's what we're going to do. Kind of like what Eve, our granddaughter, does with slime.
Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you. Anything you want to say?
No, just that a life well lived is not a life without trials and tribulations, but the joy, and if you allow the joy and love to come to you and you put it back out into the world, that seems to be, to me, the best way to go at it.
I think that's beautifully said. And I think keeping things at arm's length and not be totally by the ups and downs of this life.
Yes, definitely. And not letting in people who are toxic, situations that are not good for you, setting some boundaries around what you will and won't tolerate is an important part of taking good care of yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Ethel, this was wonderful.
Yes, it was. Thank you. It was a privilege for me, a treat.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you here, I'm going to just click off and we're done.
Okay.
But if you wouldn't mind sending me a picture, so
sure.
I put this on Instagram and so forth, and everybody else wants to see the person. So
should it be before my facelift or after my facelift?
It should be. It should be during.
It could be my hands, right?
It could be your hands, but I'm not. I mean, here.
Yes, I know.
This is ridiculous.
No,
it is beautiful. What it is.
It's beautiful.
Yours are beautiful.
Evidence of a life well lived.
That's who we are. So that should be the worst.
Thanks,
anyway,
Betty.
You're wonderful. Thank you so
are you.
much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Bye.